There's a lot of planes in the sky today. They must know I'm doing a photo walk. I swear, when I go walking usually, I don't see a single plane. Well, not many planes anyway. And the moment I switch this thing on, it's like I'm living next to an aerodrome. Move on, Neil. Well, I'm going to level with you. The photo walk this week is kind of split into two. I didn't record the... Oh, its engine's just gone off. Listen to that. I hope he's all right. Oh, no, there we are. Back again. Ooh, engine off practice. Okay, well, I'm going to level with you. This photo walk this week is split into two. But the photographs will be from the first part, and the audio is for the second part. Partly because I would have recorded the audio in the first part, but I made the mistake by not taking my fluffy thing that goes on the end of the microphone. So therefore, all you really heard down by the coast was which is not great when it comes to the fact that really you want to be hearing the messages and the emails that you've been sending in. So the photographs are from my trip to the coast, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Freedom! Yes, it was, wasn't it? And the audio bit, well, this is from a little bit later during the week, re-recorded. I just thought I'd share that bit of production with you. Welcome to
Photography Daily, the Friday Photo Walk.
Welcome then to the Friday Photo Walk. Just you, me, our cameras, our walking boots, a fresh pack of Garibaldis, and a little while to wander. Share some stories, some thoughts from you that turn up in the mailbag, and make some pictures of those somethings and nothings. We're proud to be supported on the show as ever by mpb.com, with offices and warehouses now in Brighton, UK, Brooklyn, USA, and Berlin in Europe. If you're buying, selling, or trading used camera kit online, these are the people you can trust. In Texas, Catherine Cunningham dropped us a line within the PD Facebook group to say that MPB US had just delivered an extender. I saw the box pics. It was like a YouTube unboxing, Catherine. And good to have a Photography Daily happy user of mpb.com's services. If you haven't heard the show before, because we have a lot of new folk beginning to join by the looks of the stats, as they say, in very grown-up meetings language, where they have fancier biscuits than Garibaldis round the table. It's a very different style of show to the Mondays and Wednesdays, but we do like to play back some of our recent guests so that you can hear the inspirational words they share in the 2 interview shows each week. So, cameras ready, walking boots on, let's start. In a couple of weeks, we're actually going to go, that's me, you and Carr, are going to be headed off toward the coast, down to Portsmouth. So I will actually do a photo walk, audio and pictures, remembering to take my dead cat, me fluffy thing, to go on the end of the microphone so that we can get both experiences together, in sync. So yeah, Portsmouth, here we come. I did tell you, didn't I, that as soon as we found some freedom, then I'd like to head down to the coast a bit. It's one of my favourite places in the world, being next to the sea. Honestly, if I could live there, I certainly would. But I think the kids and Sam might have something to say about that. There's a real healing nature, isn't there, to being by the sea. It does remind me, though, of teasing the kids. And we knew they'd got out the gullible stage the moment the black and white gag didn't work anymore. What's the black and white gag, Neil? I'll tell you. That's when we used to say 2 things. I can see the sea, number 1. And number 2, it was, you're lucky these days, kids. Why is that, Dad? Well, when I was young, all this used to be in black and white. No, yeah, colour wasn't invented. We didn't get a licence till, I think it was about 75, 76. No way, yeah. Everything was in black and white. The world really only got colour in about, I don't know, I think it was the drought year, around about 1976. No, yeah. You're so old, Dad. I know, so you're lucky you've got a colour world. But of course that doesn't work anymore. Let's start the week then with this mail from Martin Leake. Now, this one features in the latest YouTube film, which I'm planning to call. I think I will have called it. It's up by now. Photography Heals Me, which also features Ian McDonald, a Fujifilm ambassador in Canada. So from Martin. Hello, Neil. I've been a photographer for nearly 2 decades now. Picked up my first Olympus camera when I was 16. And though the flavour of camera, as you call it, has changed, I can't think of a time where I haven't had a camera with me since those days. I'm not a professional, I've no desire to be, and I really don't have a speciality. The reason for writing, though, is that I hear a fair amount of males that talk about how photography has helped them through tricky patches in their lives. I suffer from acute anxiety, the result of a physical attack a long time ago, so just getting out at times has been hard. It comes and goes, but one thing has remained a constant: my photography. It seems that being in a moment, focusing quite literally on something through an eyepiece, can help me realign my thoughts. I go as far as to say that photography heals me at the times in my life where nothing else seems to have had an influence on my mental state. Keep covering this subject, please. It's an important one and won't just end when COVID ends. Regards, Martin. You're absolutely right, Martin. I've been meaning to make that film for a couple of weeks. It was helped by Ian McDonald, the Fujifilm ambassador, who kindly came on and helped me make that film with the stories of how he feels that photography, and in particular street photography for him, has, he uses the word healed his PTSD. So if you haven't seen that film, I will link to it. That seems a little bit self-indulgent, I know, but for the good reason that a few people helped us make that one. So thank you indeed for your email as well, Martin. Here's one from Mally Davis. Well, I did it, he says. I traded in my 16 to 35 f4 Nikkor to MPB for a Fuji X100S. That was a good move. This little camera's providing another side to my photography I'm loving. The service is always from MPB, spot on, less than a week from trade-in to receiving the camera. Love the wide-angle lens, but since getting my Z7 2470, it was not getting used. Maybe in the future, the 14 to 30S may jump in the bag. But for now, I'm taking a leap into losing some timber and walking with this little cracker of a camera. Completely manual, and finding it a good opposite to the Nikon. Also, I'm not worried about getting mugged carrying this discreet street beast. Today, around about 4 p.m, will be my first outing with a camera, a planned 8-mile walk, and hopefully with these blue skies, long shadows, and strong contrast photography, all inspired by you and the Belting podcast. Well, that's very kind of you, Mally. For now, here's a shot from my last project, I Quit. Local landscape photography. A clickbait bit of fun, he says. In 4 years of making content for YouTube, so you're just about to meet Mally as a YouTuber. I've never done a clickbait title, so this for me was a bit tongue-in-cheek. Hope you like the image and the rest from the project. Stay well, stay safe. Sithee. Sithee too. Sithee. I'm going to do something a bit unusual, actually. Usually we play a few moments from past guests between my bits and the emails and the DMs that you send in, but I'm going to leap on to Mally's platform, because I think you'll really warm to his really very natural vlogging style. He was talking about YouTube, and I'd like to, well, you can see him if you go to the show notes, but here you can hear him. He doesn't like the description vlogger, so I shan't call him a vlogger. But here's Mally on his own photo walk. You can go check it out in Vision, but it's lovely. Just he's so approachable, such a natural style.
Pants on, boots on, little bag, got the sling with me. Just throw the camera in the sling, bit of odds and ends, filter if I need it. 70 to 200, 24 to 70S, Nikon Z mount. There you go, that's for YouTube. When the little robots are listening in, mention a bit of gear. I am lose it plot. Seriously, what month are we in? March. This might go out in May. March, and I haven't been out for a sunset. I've been quite surprised by the viewers. Canada, Tasmania, Sydney, Australia, Germany, Holland, Mars. Unbelievable. It coming out tonight, I can have a good jangle, have a good chat with you ladies gentlemen. And as you figured as well, if you watch my channel, it's not safe for kids. So I'm sorry if anyone takes offence. I might start putting a little warning on. But tonight I won't swear. Promise. Oh my f***ing God, look at this. Oh, the sun's gonna roll across the hill.
Wonderful stuff from Mally Davis. And do go check out his YouTube channel. It's really good. I love his approachable style. Very natural, very authentic. That's one of the it's one of the hardest things to get right, I think, on YouTube. You see a lot of people try really hard. Still don't actually think I've got it completely right. That's not me fishing for compliments. That's me not being a very comfortable YouTuber just yet. It's always a work in progress. But I think Mally, you've nailed it, Mally. You really have. Here's one from Christopher James. No relation. Dear Neil, I continue to love the show. Thank you. I have a few questions starting with your audio. I guess you've answered this before, but I'm sorry, I haven't heard. I know you record the Friday photo walks on your iPhone 8 with a dead cat, but how do you get such great audio when you put us in your pocket? For those that haven't heard that segment of the show, when I stopped to make a photograph, which won't be today, funnily enough, because the photographs were all from the other day. I think this is the first time we've done it in two parts. Audio one part, pictures the first part. But usually I get the microphone, or the iPhone 8 in this case, with the fluffy bit on the top to stop the pops, and I pop the whole thing into the top pocket of my North Face jacket. Here we go, like this. Makes a bit of noise when it goes in, but there we go. But once it's in, then I can use my camera and talk at the same time, hands-free as it were. No problem. Can you hear that in the background? The ice cream truck. I'm near a village. Did we talk about this before? My mum always used to say, if the ice cream truck, if the music's playing, they've run out of ice cream. But anyway, that's how I put you in the pocket. If I just whip you out the pocket now, and we're back to normal. But in actual fact, Chris, the microphone is never really that much further than it is when I'm hand holding it. It's pretty much the same sort of plane, really. So that's how that bit happens. But as you know, as we go into summer now, I haven't actually really done a lot of summer photo walks because we started the Photography Daily show on the 1st of June, and at that point I did a few sporadic little photo walks, but nothing like this, not the main episode. So I haven't yet had an opportunity to see what it's like when I'm just t-shirting. So I guess I'll be precariously balancing microphones on tree stumps and whatever while I take the pictures. I had thought about putting it into a hot shoe, sort of make some sort of hot shoe contraption so that it would just sit there as I was talking. And on that note, Chris's second question, I love your use of the X Pro 1 and recent chat about the Canon AE1. Yes, we talked about it on the photo walk last week, didn't we? I mostly shoot film on my Minolta SRT 202 with a 35mm RAW. I home developed with D76 and haven't scanned in the pictures yet, but will send some through if they're any good. Whatever happened to your own film revival? I asked about a year ago. Never really heard the outcome. Well, yes. It really is a case of deving, to be honest. Making the pictures. If it was for the Friday photo walk, that's the awkward thing, really, is having the pictures ready to scan them in time for the show. I tend to record at the 11th hour on the Friday photo walk, so there'd never really be the time to do the work to make the pictures work with the audio. But the irony is this week I haven't done that, so I could have really shot the coast a few days ago. I could have, should have, would have shot that on film, devved it up, and had it ready for you. But so maybe that's the way I should do it in the future. But I do actually quite like to record the audio and make the pictures at the same time. I think that's the point of the photo walk, really. So to have 2 photo walks a week is nice, but usually I only really get a chance to do the one. But that's the film story. But I have the F5, my trusty brick F5, and now I have a Zorky 4 which is, of course, the Zorky 4 is the Russian camera that's featured on the show art. But that's got a slight problem, I think. I'm having trouble making the shutter speed do what I want it to do. But I'm pretty much good to go again with film. And I certainly intend to shoot a bit more this coming summer. And finally, 3 questions. That's all right, Chris. Can we hear from Giles again on the show sometime, please? The first show of yours I ever listened to was the Breathe Pictures one with Giles. I've listened to it 3 times, even briefly chatted with him when he was on Instagram. He was generous enough to post me a print, which is a prized possession of mine. Yeah, Giles prints beautifully. Then he disappeared, he says, suspiciously close to your show on why photographers should abandon IG, I might add. Anyway, all the best, I hope. The last thing I saw him say on IG, Instagram, was that he was going to shoot HP5 on his Leica and print at home. I can see his lovely website. Fairlight and Full Frame has a few projects up. Can we hear about them, please? Or have I missed him somewhere along the way? No, you haven't missed him, actually, but he's taken a bit of time out. And in fact, in a moment, I'm off to go and have a cup of tea with him and have a chat. Yes, we're allowed to decadently mix now, aren't we? Outside. So we're going to have a cup of tea and proper chinwag. But as far as Instagram and Facebook and social media, yes, he's taken some time out. And he did write this, actually. He said, for personal reasons, I've decided to completely withdraw from all social media in order to pursue a more introspective relationship with my photography. Sincerest thanks to Christopher and others who have kindly mentioned or remarked on my previous work. I wish them all the best. Fairlight and Full Frames. So there we go, Fairlight and Full Frames. I love that expression. Shall we, I tell you what, shall we hear a bit of Giles? This is from way, way back. This is episode 3. And it was a Breathe Pictures podcast show. Rebranded as a Photography Daily one. But here's Giles Penfound.
And then we come to India, truly one of the most magical places on the planet, I think. From this kind of mad, sterile world that I thought Hong Kong was, and it was only my view and only my perception of it, to this crazy, dirty, smelly, wonderful, vibrant place that is India. And I was helping Gaz on a 2-week course, or rather on a 1-week course in Jodhpur in Rajasthan. And I took this fantastic railway journey, a journey that I've been wanting to take all my life, since watching Great Railway Journeys of the World on the BBC. And there I was, having this journey and making the images of this journey. And we got to Jodhpur, and the busyness and the frenetic nature of this place was just extraordinary. And then once I got over that sort of very British reserve of not talking to people who talk to you, all of a sudden you realise what a wonderful bunch of people these are rather. And they were so happy and very, very accommodating to let me take pictures of them. And I didn't try and kid myself that I wasn't a tourist, because I absolutely was. This story wasn't necessarily about, poverty in India or any deep, dark secret about India. It was a story about my travels. And that's just as justified. It really is. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think sometimes we forget that our own emotional journeys and our own paths are just as valid as a story as anything else. And you don't have to be deep and dark and serious.
It's the Friday Photo Walk. If you'd like to email in with some pictures of your own, then I'd love to hear from you. Send them in 2,000 pixels wide, or 2,000 pixels on the longest side, I should say. Send them to studio@photographydaily.show. And that was a moment ago my good friend Giles Penfound, who signs everything off now with Fairlight and Full Frames. Fairlight and Full Frames. I will say this, actually, let you into a little secret about that particular interview on that podcast. And also there's a YouTube film, of course. I had a load of questions to ask Giles. I sort of spent a little time researching, and then he turned up for the recording. It was a film recording, which we then used the audio from. He turned up for the recording, and he had a large folder full of beautiful prints that he'd made. And I set the lights up, set the sound up, and we put all the prints on. I found a location which was an old barn at a farm where I used to have a studio, actually. And but I didn't want to go to the nice studio. I wanted to go to a barn at a proper rusty old workbench there, surrounded by farm parts, tractor parts. You know, it was proper greasy. It was the sort of the engineering shed, if you like. And I dragged it across, all the way across, dragged it across. And he put his prints out, and he looked at me in that kind of like, "You haven't cleaned the table. These are beautiful prints" way. He was absolutely right. So we tried to clean the table off the best we could, and then I got ready to ask my questions, and he just launched into I would imagine it was about an hour's monologue. It was beautiful. He just sort of recounted stories of his photography right from when he first got interested. It was what was the print? Was it a Bresson one? I think it was a Cartier-Bresson one. All the way through to all his career and his work in photography and his personal projects. Anyway, you can hear it if you go back to episode 3. Here's a place which has fair light. Oh, Neil, I know I'm trying. This is from Gabriella C. Marino in Italia, close to Roma. Sorry. You're not supposed to have faves, I know, but one of my favourite weddings ever was an Italian couple. Oh, Gabriella, I can't tell you how much fun that wedding was. Wonderful family. A lot of the family had come across from Italy, and so this is going back obviously pre-COVID, but not far pre-COVID. And the father owned one of the ice cream parlours in very close to the Trevi Fountain, and it's been a gold mine, I'm sure, for generations. I think it's been in the family generations, and so he's a fairly wealthy chap, very nice. But he decided that he got fed up of Ferraris. I think he had a couple, so for his daughter he ordered a Mustang. What was it? 1967 Shell V or Shell B? Shell B Special GT. I've got some photos of it. Shall I put them up? I know it's not really a Photowalk picture though, is it? Am I allowed to do that? I'll make a decision between now and putting the stuff up. But yeah, what a wonderful wedding. I loved it. Lots of it. I mean, the Italian language, I think, is a beautiful language. French, I like French as well, actually. I always think French is a nice language to listen to. But Italian, the passion. Anyway, back to what you were saying. Dear Neil, I follow you on Twitter, and I've recently subscribed to your podcast. I really enjoy the episodes I've listened to so far. I live in Rome, Italy. I'm a first-time writer. Photography has really helped me cope during the pandemic, and I try to shoot something almost every day. I used to shoot a lot of events at work, but of course we're only doing webinars at the moment. I know. We'll be back. I'm attaching some photos from my 2nd of April photo walk in a neighbourhood close to mine. It's a part of Rome which isn't very well known, and I found a couple of interesting old and uninhabited homes that were originally in the countryside, whereas now they're in a sort of semi-central neighbourhood. I normally shoot with a Sony A7 III, but these were mostly taken on an Olympus Tough TG6, which I recently bought myself as a pandemic prezi to keep in my pocket. All the best, Gabriella Marino. Well, thank you for your pictures. I will post them up, and they'll be on the show notes today, and I very much like the idea of pandemic prezis, particularly for the alliteration. That works. But this Olympus Tough, see, I'm not very... I don't know a lot about the Olympus range, so I had to go and root around a bit, have a look, and I read the DP review. Hikers and other outdoorsy folks, they write, who want to track their progress and incorporate things like location and altitude into the metadata of their photos will love this. Yeah, nice bit of kit. I would imagine it's almost indestructible. And when I was looking at the test pictures, the underwater, some stunning imagery. You can go down 15 metres, which is, what's that, 50 feet? 50 feet? and it's got I think it was a 12 megawattical punch. So, reasonably good. It was CMOS sensor, I think, wasn't it? Anyway, for the warmth, thank you very much for your email, and glad to have you aboard. Don't be a stranger, and send more from Rome, please. From the warmth of Italia to the colds of Norway, where I'm actually shooting a wedding next year, actually, in August, in Lillehammer. This one's from Erland Lillebo. Now, I think I've got that right. Hi, Neil, long-time listener from the town of Alesund in Norway. I've got your Instagram address, and I'll make sure that with the pictures that you've sent, I'll pop that Instagram address up so people can go and see where you live. It's beautiful. Wow, it's cold, but it's beautiful. Your wonderful podcast, says Erlend, is the highlight of my week. Listening to it while I load trucks full of fresh Norwegian trout farmed deep inside one of our many fjords. I'm coming for tea. So many great people we get to learn about and inspired by. Well, it's very kind of you, and I feel flattered that it's the highlight of your week. I really am, honestly. Shot on the X Pro 3. Here's some pictures from a snowy walk with my brother and our dog Frodo. Keep up the phenomenal work. Greatly appreciated, from Ireland. We had some snow earlier this week. I think it was Monday, wasn't it? I went out Monday and the picnic table was white. I thought, hang on, it's April. Stop that nonsense. But it doesn't compare at all to the snow that you sent, or the pictures of the snow that you sent. Missed Norway this year, I really did. We were supposed to be going skiing. I know, get over it, Neil. I talked about it a little bit. Yeah, a couple of months ago, I was planning on doing a couple of it wouldn't have been photo walk, would it? It would have been photo ski. I was going to do some photo skis. But I made a YouTube film a couple of years ago when I was there, featuring a chap called Morton. I wanted to test out the GoPro Hero 7, and I did do a couple of treks down the mountainside on me 2 bits of wood. And then I thought, actually, let's try out the low light performance. And you can't go skiing at night; it's greatly frowned upon. So I asked somebody at one of the lift stations whether I could get in touch with the guy or the girl that did the snow ploughing, or better still, the piste bashing. And Morton, the piste basher, he turned up at about I think I had to meet him. What was it? 4:30, 5 in the morning. Oh, fantastic! We went and bashed the pistes, and Morton came out. Didn't speak a word of English, but we sort of had an odd conversation, and struck up a bit of a rapport. It was great fun. He was the sort of rugged captain of the snowplow. They make them tough in your part of the world, Erland, don't they? Right, shall we do... we always play some clips, some inspirational moments from the shows. So I think actually I'm going to choose some inspiring words from a former adventuring guest, Daniel Hughes, who's been to a few cold places. He's a cyclist, an adventurer. He was in the Special Forces. See, that's a rugged man, isn't it? Here's Daniel.
I guess it was all down to Everest. So winding back before that, I met some very poor children on a mountainside in a city called Potosi, and I wanted to go back and try and raise the money for them. So the idea was to take a red nose with me and go and climb a mountain there called Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in South America. Turns out that no one had done that before, so I then thought, well, I wonder if anyone had done one on Everest, and no one had. So off I went with this mission to try and put a red nose on top of Mount Everest, but the charitable element wasn't enough. I needed something else to kind of differentiate me from everyone else. Even though I was reaching out to FedEx and saying, I'm going to be your red nose delivery man, track the red nose on their FedEx.com, It just wasn't enough. And so technology was my friend. So I thought to myself, well, what hasn't been done on Everest? And it turns out that no one had ever done a live video broadcast from the summit. So that was now my mission. And 2.5 years later, I successfully did that, where I made a video call to the BBC News channel from the summit.
I saw it, I saw it.
And that was from a smartphone. So I guess that was my first ever kind of public usage of a camera in terms of documenting my journey. Amazingly, I had access to all the photographic collection from the first summit in 1953. The Royal Geological Survey gave me the collection, so I could compare their photographs, which George Lowe took, to mine, which was amazing.
The amazing Daniel Hughes on the podcast. I'll link, of course, to all the photographers that we play today in our excerpts. I'll put it in the famous show notes, as I've started calling them, for no reason whatsoever. Ooh, fright the living daylights out of me. Oh, that's me exercise done for the day. Heart rate is right up. Don't be doing that again, please. Thank you very much. Here's a mail from Steve Vaughan, who's an admin. Oh, by the way, before we do that, Facebook, because I'm about to mention Facebook with Steve. We have a Facebook group, and it's growing, brick by brick, slowly. If you'd like to be a member of it, it's a private Facebook group, so you need to search out Photography Daily. Send in, it's not an application, is it? Just you ask to be a member, and we just check your shoes, and we let you straight in. There we go. And then you can meet a whole load of very wonderfully friendly people who are just really interested in photography. Don't be frightened by some groups I know have some people that are sort of very precious about their photography, and when you ask a question, they make you feel a bit awkward about it. Nothing like that in our group. Everybody's very friendly, no questions too daft, and if you just want to just hang and show a few pictures and talk about the stuff that you've been doing, that's fantastic. So here's Steve Vaughan, who is an admin for our Facebook group for the FujiCast, which is the other podcast I do with me good reprobate buddy Kev Mullins. Hello Neil, I was listening to your Friday photo walk while doing a job I hate. Wood treat painting new fence panels. See, Steve, that's a job I quite like. I like all those kind of jobs. Put some podcasts on, or some Spotify, some music, and wonderful. I could fill my days doing that. Anyway, regarding the episode where you discussed the need for artists also to be business people, most of my working life has been in business, running sales teams and businesses operating in laboratory equipment and bioprocessing. And when the stress and pressures of this life became too much for my health in my 50s, I decided to take my business skills to my hobby, photography, to try and become a professional photographer. Fast forward 7 years, Sam and I, that's Steve's wife, have built a successful wedding photography business. I've, however, always had imposter syndrome around certain photographers. I sometimes feel that because I have skills and abilities in the dark arts of sales and business, that I'm seen as being not really a real photographer, or that I'm only successful because somehow I hoodwink customers through some magical sales powers to book us as wedding photographers. I think I'll always feel, though, as a scientist working in the arts, that I'm an interloper to some degree. Oh, Steve. Well, it is strange, isn't it? Because you two have done so well. I mean, you've won a handful of industry prizes. You've built as you say, a successful business in 7 years, and you feel like you're the interloper, as you call it. My own feelings for many years was that, I felt the very same way, Steve. I don't think it's unusual. I think a lot of photographers, a lot of creatives, as we've discussed, feel that way, don't they? I think I mooted to a few people that for quite a while I felt like, I think the word I used, I know the word I used, was the word visitor. That was the word I used to use. I feel like a visitor. And one day I'll obviously wake up and everything will be back to normal again. I'll be doing the job that I was supposed to be doing, which of course never happened. 16, almost 17 years later, here I am, professional photographer. But there are still times where you think, can I do this? Am I really a photographer? I've talked about before, haven't I? I've talked about going to that party with former radio colleagues, and one of them sidling up to me after a couple of pints of best, saying, "How did you end up being a wedding photographer?" I couldn't work out whether that was because he felt it was somehow beneath me, or whether he thought that he couldn't believe I was a photographer. I don't know, one of the two. But even at weddings, sometimes you get that, don't you, Steve? You get somebody will come up to you and they'll say, "What do you do as your proper job? What do you do usually?" What, you mean when I'm not spending my entire week editing photographs and having meetings and running a business? And yeah, it does suffer from that slightly, doesn't it, Steve? But look, let me talk about, we've got a guest coming up next week, and I think this is relevant. Albert Watson. Albert Watson, of course, is, he's been described as one of the 20 most influential photographers in fashion and portraiture and the celebrity world. And Albert's shot a couple of weddings. He described his first one. I think he said he'd never worked as hard. This is not something he said in the interview with me. I'd heard him say it somewhere else in another interview while I was researching him. And he said he'd shot the wedding. He'd got back. He'd developed the pictures, made the book. He'd done it all in sort of double quick time. He was very proud of the turnaround time. He took it to the couple, and I think it was the husband that said, we've split. And the second time he went to do a wedding was a royal wedding. So things had changed somewhat for him in that time. One moment doing a wedding for a private client, much like the private clients we have. The next moment doing a royal wedding. That's what they call chalk and cheese. Actually, no, it's not chalk and cheese. That should be wedding cake and cheese tower, shouldn't it? So, shall we do this then? Last mail of the week time. From the Patreon channel, actually. Tuesday just gone, we did a special little follow-up to Monday's episode, which was all about leaps of faith. I really enjoyed talking to Roy Tyson, who shared... he's a photographer, a photographer artist, all rolled into one, self-taught photographer, and he's built this incredible business making, it's miniaturism, isn't it? Miniature art. He chops up these modelling figures that I think are, I don't know, they're not painted. They're just the plastic, I think. And he paints them. He dresses some of them. He moves their arms, chops off a limb here to replace it and change it and move it and reshape it. And he creates these amazing, wonderful installations, which were a lot of fun. But he, in that episode, which was Monday's episode, I'll link to it, he was talking about changing career, changing job, and very much, actually, this goes hand in hand with Steve Vaughan's mail a moment ago. And we called the episode Leaps of Faith, because Roy had to take a proper leap, didn't he? He wasn't really making enough to pay his mortgage. I think he said he had about half as much as he needed to pay his bills. But then he figured in his mind, he thought, do you know, I think I'm onto something here. And he stuck with it, and he's made a good business out of it. But on the back of that, we did a second part on the Patreon channel. This is a good opportunity for me to quickly plug those that kindly support the Patreon channel. Thank you so much. You do make an immense difference. And on the extra episode, I just played a bit more from Roy's interview, and we talked a little bit more about leaps of faith. And we got some cracking comments in the Patreon area. One of those was from Andrew Hardacre on making your passion your job. Now, Andrew is a phenomenally good bird photographer. Is that the right expression? Yes, I think it is. He said, it took me over 30 years to realise I was working to fund a hobby, birding around the world, which morphed into bird photography and then broadened out. By then, it was too late. I don't think I had or have the creative streak that would allow me to monetize a hobby, but to those who have, I would say, just do it. Particularly if you are youngish. Most people under 50 or maybe even 60 will have a life expectancy with decent quality of life of 100 plus. As medicine continues to advance rapidly. Really? My word. How many years of that do you think we can do the podcast for? Just think what's happened in the last 20 to 30 years. People won't be able to fund a retirement from 65 for 40 years, so they'll have to work longer and may end up having 2 or 3 different careers. Why shouldn't one of those be your passion, full-time or part-time? That's a very good point. Brandon Stanton is a photographer who comes to mind. Now, admittedly, he was I think, in his late 20s when he did this. But, you know, with Brandon's idea, could so easily have been somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s doing what he did. If you don't know who Brandon Stanton is, he's a photographer who's responsible for creating Humans of New York, which is an online photography project that grew into this global phenomenon. The project features street portraits and interviews conducted on the streets of New York. Started in 2010, Humans of New York now has a huge following. The photo blog has attracted 17 million followers on Facebook and 8 million on Instagram. Wow. But as far as I'm sure that when Brandon started it, he didn't think, well, this is going to be my business. I think it was an organic process and progress with Brandon, and that's why it's been so successful. And obviously, if you love something, if you really enjoy doing it, then as we were saying only the other day in Andrew Bernstein's interview on Wednesday, I think it was Kobe Bryant was talking about obsessions and being obsessed with sport and being obsessed with creativity. I think it was a bit of a mixture of the late Kobe Bryant and Andrew Bernstein on that particular one. But I tell you what, I mentioned Albert Watson a moment ago, and I'm really he is a man that is absolutely, I think you could say, obsessed by the art of photography and the creativity around it and the creativity involved in printing. We talked about all sorts of things, and actually right at the end, it wasn't Albert that I feel really embarrassed. Look, here I am talking to a legend, an absolute legend, and I had to say, Albert, I've got to go, because I was on looking after the boys duty. But he was very sweet, he was wonderful. He said, oh, no worries at all, in his sort of half Scottish, half American accent now, because he's been out there for so long. He said, let's do this again. So I will be going back to ask Albert all the other questions that we just didn't have time to touch upon in that particular interview. Let me tease you with an excerpt from next Wednesday's show. The phenomenal Albert Watson.
I did for a play that was on called Toys in the Attic. That was a well-known play, and we used to do posters for the repertory company in Dundee Rep. And the students did that, and I remember doing this. I thought about toys. How can I make this? It was a psychological drama. This idea of toys in the attic and something strange that affected. And then I remember photographing the daughter of one of the lecturers there. Just a very simple shot of a child. And then I remember taking children's wooden blocks, building blocks.
Yeah.
And I took 6 of them. I then divided the photo into 6 and put them as building blocks. And then I realized that in a surreal way, I could put the building blocks in any configuration. So therefore, the building blocks represented toys. And for the surreal aspect, I could split up the face and just separate it slightly. And there was endless combinations there. So this was a way that I could suggest the surreal.
So looking forward to the full interview with Albert Watson on Wednesday. And that's it for today. Another photo walk done. Thank you for your emails to studio@photographydaily.show. Also your DMs and the messages you leave in the Facebook group and on Patreon. Keep sending them in so that I can feature you in a photo walk very, very soon. Monday, Todd Vickers is here, who is a location scout and manager. Now, if this photographer comes to your house sporting a camera, first of all, you should get very excited, because the chances are his production team may be coming back with a big check at some stage too. Find out what a photographer does as a location scout, manager and pro on Monday.
So I had a friend that worked with Ridley Scott on a project, and when he first was talking to him on set one day, he said how much he admired a movie called The Duelists. I don't know if you're familiar with that film.
Yes.
It's one of his early works. It's a beautiful film about the Napoleonic War. And Ridley just looked at him and smiled and said, "Fucking telephone poles." And he said, "What?" He says, "I can tell you where every bloody telephone pole is in France."
Then Wednesday, as you heard just then, Albert Watson. One word, legend. Actually 2 words, legendary photographer. thrilled that he's agreed to talk to us on the show. Be sure to visit today's website show page for links to guests and things discussed. You'll find a link in the description and your podcast player app as always. Music in the show was from artlist.io, and I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you on Monday. When I left Carr in Milford on Sea last week, first part of it, I suppose if you like, part one of Photowalk without audio, he was most distressed, weren't you, Carr?
Yes.
Why were you distressed?
Because you parked me right next to the cafe.
Well, I thought that might be a nice place. Lots of people to watch, people coming and going, maybe the odd Alfa Romeo, I don't know.
Well, all that really happened was that I got redecorated.
Oh, I know. Chips, fish, cafe equals lots of gulls.
Yes.
And what do?
Don't go laughing.
I'm not laughing. I was not happy. I know you weren't. I promise next time not to park you next to the cafe.
Yes.
It did take quite a while to take that off. I don't know what. I think it was a pterodactyl car. I don't think that was a gull. That was something. You're laughing. I'm not laughing. You are. I'm not. That was something much larger. I won't do it again.
Promise?
I promise.
Go on. Let's go home.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.